27th Street all the way down to South Ferry. I've done multiple walks of Broadway already, but none of them have been narrated. One of my most viewed videos actually is walking down Broadway from Times Square to South Ferry, so this time I get to add a little bit of my knowledge and insight into this walk. Here's one of the high entrance exit turnstiles that I don't really like. So there's two sides here. One exit is the Broadway side and the other one is the 7th Avenue side. It doesn't really matter which side you pick because they're so close to each other here anyway. So I just exited on the street level and immediately this is Olive Garden, chain Italian restaurant. I wouldn't suggest you to go to Olive Garden. There's much better restaurants around here to eat, but we're right in the thick of Times Square. Here you have Starbucks coffee. This is the Westfield Hotel. Dos Caminos. So this is where it is, folks. When you think of Broadway, you think of the theater district in Times Square, and we're right in the middle. Here's the TKTS booth. You can get a lot of discount Broadway and off-Broadway tickets here. And all around us, you can see all the electronic billboards for which Times Square is famous for. Times Square is a subsection of Midtown. This is a gigantic pedestrian plaza. It wasn't always like this. Back in the 90s, this was open to car traffic to travel southbound.
Premiumbeat.com.
If you're coming here for the first time, I know how overwhelming it could be. There's probably not too many places around the world like Times Square. There's Father Duffy, a statue of Father Duffy. This area is called Father Duffy Square. Times Square is my favorite place in New York City. Originally it was called Longacre Square, after the town in the same place in England. The name changed to Times Square when the newspaper company, the New York Times, moved here in 1901. I was going to say 1898, but that's when the 5 boroughs of New York City were consolidated.
Premiumbeat.com.
But around the same time frame anyway. Make sure you look both ways before you cross. Jaywalking is a social norm in New York City and it's widely accepted. The police don't really enforce it. Looks like the city's still doing some construction with the bollards here. They protect against vehicular attacks on the sidewalk. There was a major incident maybe a year ago or a few years ago, I don't really remember, where a car jumped the curb and now down a lot of people. It's an unfortunate incident, but these metal bollards are here to protect such a thing from happening again. You see that person trying to hand me a flyer I saw was for Frozen. One thing I have to warn you about in Times Square is you have to be careful of people handing you things because they may pressure you into giving them a donation. And some of their events may be very high priced. You can probably get them cheaper somewhere else, such as the TKTS booth that I told you about, or the Today Tix app, a great place to get Broadway tickets. And another thing about Broadway too, regarding the theaters, a Broadway theater is called a Broadway theater because of its seating size. I think if it seats more than 1,000 people is considered a Broadway theater. I forget the exact number, but that's why it's called a Broadway theater.
Premiumbeat.com.
This is pretty interesting. I haven't really seen this around. The city installed these wax figures. Well, this is a Broadway showboat hosted by Madame Tussauds. I know what this is, Wicked Witch and Dorothy. Another thing too I have to warn you about is with these pedestrian zones over here. These street hustlers and costume characters are only legally allowed to be in that area. If they're outside of that area trying to haggle you or approach you for services, then they're not allowed to. But please be aware, if you pose with them to take a picture, they do expect a donation and a tip, and some of them can be quite aggressive with it. The same thing with people handing out free CDs. They'll expect a donation for their CD.
Premiumbeat.com.
And if you refuse, sometimes they may be very aggressive about it. But they're not scam artists, they're just, I would call them aggressive salesmen. Their CDs are full of music, and you can listen to some of them if you so desire. But for me, that's not my kind of thing. I think this person is selling services to a tour bus. No, it's for a restaurant. There's the headquarters of NASDAQ, the electronically traded stock exchange. It's not as busy as it can be in Times Square, but there is a sizable crowd here. Oh, by the way, this building to my right, the Walgreens building, this is One Times Square. This is where the ball drops during New Year's and New Year's Eve. If you'd like to see what it's like on New Year's Eve trying to get here, you should check out my video of me going to the New Year's Eve ball without any intention of going there on the security line. It's pretty crazy.
Premiumbeat.com.
This building, the H&M building, is called the Condé Nast building. It's one of the largest, the tallest skyscrapers in the Times Square area. Here's 42nd Street, one of the busiest crosstown streets in Midtown. Many bus services travel along here, as well as the Grand Central Shuttle. And also the number 7 line. This is the Times Square 42nd Street subway station. It serves 9 subway lines and also connects to 3 more at the Port Authority bus terminal, which is located on 8th Avenue and is a major commuter hub further destinations from the city. So I've exited the Times Square area, heading south on Broadway towards Herald Square. Broadway is a very unique street in that it's a diagonal route through Midtown Manhattan until it gets to 14th Street, and then it curves slightly to about 10th Street and then straightens out. This was due to the street being modeled on an Indian trail. Broadway was an Indian trail for most of its history. It led through the rocky Manhattan, through all the marshland and swamps and wooded areas. And it's kept the path more or less with some modifications. Businesses here. Although that's located more on 7th Avenue though. Various newsstands in New York City.
Premiumbeat.com.
It's very convenient here to get drinks and newspapers, chewing gum. Wonder what's going on here. LC Rooftop. Never heard of this place, but there are many rooftop bars you can visit that go up to the top of the skyscrapers and you get an excellent view of the city. Oftentimes you don't have to pay that expensive ticket to go to the top of the Rock or to the Empire State Building. You go to a rooftop bar, pay for a drink or two, enjoy the view. I did take a look at that cyclist. They weren't supposed to be on this side, but this is a pedestrian plaza. Now these trucks, the Weed World Candies, they don't actually contain any CBD in them. There's been many news reports saying that they don't contain the ingredient that they claim to sell. So just be informed of it. Luke's Lobster, a very famous restaurant throughout the area. Very, very good lobster rolls here.
Premiumbeat.com.
Gets a little bit chaotic sometimes when people decide to step to the side or walk in diagonals or angles. Generally, people stay to the right here. Like that. Generally, I like to see where people are walking before cutting in front of them like that. But it sometimes gets busy and that's not always possible. Now these I Love New York stores, you have to be careful because a lot of their pricing, sometimes they'll be higher than normal, and sometimes you can get them a lot cheaper in places like the street vendors, such as in Chinatown or around the Soho area. But I do find that New York souvenirs, even though they are a lot higher than normal over there, they're not as expensive as souvenirs throughout the world. But you just have to do your own research. If the product seems like a good value for you, then you can go and buy it. Oh. I tell you, I have no words when I come to see, when I see bad traffic like that, or traffic decisions, I should say. You do have to look both ways before you cross. If you're driving or operating a vehicle, you have to be mindful and exercise due care. I hate to see an accident or a car crash. I know many of you talk about me talking about bad traffic incidents all the time, but it's very, very important. One bad move and that could be it for you. And that's not something I wish to happen to anybody. So take it seriously. Here's Shake Shack. We're actually going to pass by the original location of Shake Shack further on in this video at Madison Square.
That's my type of question.
You don't like them?
Like that lady there, she was about to step into traffic with her cell phone. I mean, sometimes you have your eyes on the road, but your head's not there.
Premiumbeat.com.
Very, very sad to see people in need and asking for change.
Premiumbeat.com.
I do believe it's important as a society to support them, but do be aware that there are many scam artists out there who pretend to be homeless, and big shame on them. And that's why I prefer to donate to organizations which I know will help the homeless out. Really sad to see, but I'll often support the homeless by giving them food and offering them assistance if necessary. Here we have Macy's, the self-proclaimed world's largest department store. Big traffic jam here. That's for sure.
Premiumbeat.com.
This store gets very, very decorated during the holidays. Right after Thanksgiving, the store windows are decorated with holiday themes. It changes every year. I mean, look at this. This is so sad to see. There's someone here in the middle of the sidewalk taking up the whole entire space and writing there. Wealth inequality is a big issue in New York City. That's something I hope would be corrected over the years, but you just have to hope for the better. Over here to my left, looking up, is the Empire State Building. It was the world's tallest building for 42 years. It was completed at a very, very difficult time for the United States economy during the Great Depression. This is 34th Street. One of the main streets connecting the west side of Manhattan to the east side. This is a big route for the Queens Midtown Tunnel to connect to the Lincoln Tunnel. The Lincoln Tunnel being on the Hudson River side connecting to New Jersey, and the Queens Midtown Tunnel on the east side connecting Midtown Manhattan to Long Island City in Queens.
Premiumbeat.com.
This is a big, big shopping area. I'd say after Soho, this is the largest shopping area in New York City. There's many retail stores along 34th Street. The city recently expanded the bike lane here. Before it was a big mess with a fence and people will walk all over it. On the corner of 6th Avenue and 33rd Street is the Manhattan Mall. By the way, the name Herald Square and Greeley Square came about because they were two competing newspaper companies. Herald Square being in reference to the New York Herald. And I think Greeley Square, I forgot what the newspaper was, but I think it has a reference to the New York Post today. That's the surviving company. Could be wrong.
Premiumbeat.com.
Here's one of the entrances to the 34th Street Herald Square subway station, the second busiest in the system after Times Square 42nd Street. There's 8 subway lines that serve, as well as the PATH train, which stands for the Port Authority Trains Hudson. You can take a train to go to New Jersey from here, but the systems aren't connected to each other. There's a separate fare if you're going to take the PATH train when you compare it to the subway. So this street down here is Koreatown. It extends for about a block and a half, all the way down to I believe like halfway to Madison Avenue, I should say. But even though it's only 1 block and a half, it's very, very dense. There's a lot of good restaurants in there, and I recommend anyone to visit New York to try a restaurant in Koreatown. One thing I love about New York is the density of restaurants here. You can get a lot of different cuisines from all over the world. As you can see, New York City is always under construction. That's an undeniable fact.
Premiumbeat.com.
This term was made up by me, but I call this part of Broadway construction way. Look at this, there's a building going up here. If you're watching this video in like 5 years' time, this will probably be completed. And also there's another building going up over here on 30th Street.
Premiumbeat.com.
And I know you probably can't see it right now because it's so far, but even the Flatiron building, the world famous Flatiron building, is under construction as well. So it's an interesting time to do this video. You can see it while New York City's under construction. Very, very impressive building here. It's an interesting architectural design too. It's like stacked at angles, and it doesn't really lay flush with the next level below it. Okay, now that I've entered the 20s, I've officially entered the Flatiron District, named after the Flatiron Building. Originally, it was called the Fuller Building. It's one of the earliest skyscrapers in New York City. And when it was under construction and when it was completed, a lot of people hated it. They hated the design of the Flatiron Building because it was a unique shape and it kind of like blocked out the wind and among other different complaints. But now it's beloved by most people in New York City. There's another building under construction at 28th Street. Recommend for people to do is to block the sidewalk like that and walk like 3 people side to side from one another. That's just rude. This is the 28th Street subway station. Subway station is unique in that this side is for uptown only and the other side is for downtown only. Many of the subway station entrances are like that, so be mindful of where you're getting on and off the train. You don't want to be swiping in at the wrong side and then you have to turn around further up or further down. Of course, that happens on a frequent basis anyway during the service changes and especially on weekends, so you do have to be careful of those as well. The New York City subway system runs 24 hours, 7 days a week, in some capacity at least. Sometimes they'll have to shut down like 3/4 of the line just to do some repair work and then they'll have shuttle buses, but for the most part it runs efficiently. Getting better. The fare is $2.75 a ride. And it also has unlimited fare options as well. You can buy them in 7-day and 30-day denominations. This building's under construction too. I don't think I've passed a single block here where it wasn't under construction. This looks like a good cocktail place, the Smith. They've got a lot of different vials of alcohol on the shelf there. Careful, there's a walk signal on and this vehicle is still proceeding through the intersection. I see many businesses packed up their recycling and garbage out for the day, but I've noticed that mistake a lot today just walking through the city. The city's not picking up the trash today because it's election day. If you live in New York, you always have to check the sanitation schedule to make sure they'll be collecting that day. Okay, I'm pretty sure you can see the Flatiron Building right now. It's named the Flatiron Building because it looks like an iron that's used to iron clothes. Hence the name Flatiron Building.
Premiumbeat.com.
This to the left is the Worth Monument. It's dedicated in 1857. I think this is the second oldest monument in New York City. This area has been featured in a lot of movies. It's very iconic. There was a film I saw on YouTube, a very, very old film from the early 1900s that showed somebody's hat flying off you. It was all black and white. It was really, really interesting and cool to see. This clock, the yellow clock in front, I know it's been here for a long time. Don't really know too much about its history, but I do know it's significant. In front of me is Madison Square Park. And Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, self-proclaimed world's most famous arena, home of the New York Knicks, originally had its garden here. That's why it's called Madison Square Garden, even though it's not inside Madison Square. Now it's located at 33rd Street and 7th Avenue. Madison Square Park is also the home of Shake Shack in the middle there. You know what, I might as well just go into the park for a little bit and show you.
Premiumbeat.com.
Shake Shack originally started as a hot dog stand, but their business became so popular that they expanded into selling other food items. That's why it's called Shake Shack, because literally it was a shack in the middle of the Madison Square Park. This building with the clock in front, on top I should say, is the Metropolitan Life clock tower. the Flatiron building with all its scaffolding visible. I do know that many of its levels will be converted into hotel space, so maybe in a few years from now you'll be able to book a hotel in the Flatiron building.
Premiumbeat.com.
It does look a lot different now with the scaffolding. If you like to see what the Flatiron building looks like without the scaffolding, I'm sure there's plenty of pictures up. You can also check out my other videos of Broadway or even Fifth Avenue, where I walk down to where this building is and you can see it in all its glory. Still some candidates who are up for election. Also, the New York City Charter was had a bunch of questions on it today to revise it. There's a building that's available, retail space. Flatiron building area too. There's a lot of different shopping areas. This area I think will be called NoHo, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not NoHo. Actually, I don't really know what this area is called because it's kind of in between Gramercy Park and Kips Bay. I guess it would just still be called Flatiron or Madison Square, I guess. A store from Copenhagen, Flying Tiger. They have a lot of discounted products here that are very, very practical.
Premiumbeat.com.
I think the owner of this bicycle should take more care locking it up to make sure it doesn't fall over like that. This gigantic W stands for WeWork, the real estate company which leases out office space on a short-term basis. I know they've been running into financial challenges recently. Seems like it's not a profitable business to run, but we'll see what happens with that. This is an interesting building, the Brooks Brothers Red Cafe. Different here. Sometimes in order to really appreciate New York too, you have to look up. Not only look in front of you, but look up. Now, I know I'm walking on top of these subway grates, but I wouldn't really recommend it because although it's very, very highly unlikely, there is that slight chance that you can fall through. And they're not always the most stable to walk on when it gets wet. But I'm only doing it because of speed. Smell it here, but when that subway passes underneath, you can definitely smell the ground underneath. There's a famous movie scene in which Marilyn Monroe stands on top of a subway grate, and then when the subway comes through, lifts up her dress. That's been recreated many times. So here's 18th Street. This is the Paragon Sporting Goods Company. Very good place to get all your different sporting goods, all different sports from tennis, volleyball, cycling, running, swimming. So I've officially entered Union Square. This area is named Union Square, not because of the Union Army or because of the country, but because it's the union of two main roads, historical roads through the area, that being the Bowery Road and Broadway. The Bowery Road is now called 4th Avenue, but it will continue to be called Bowery once you get past Cooper Square, I believe. Another big shopping area. Many businesses here include Petco, Barnes & Noble, Staples, Whole Foods, McDonald's. There's a big Nordstrom rack over there, Burlington. This is a very, very challenging crosswalk to cross because of the two-way bicycle lane as well as the traffic lane over there. So look both ways before you cross. On Saturdays, there's a farmer's market that comes by here too that sets up. It's very popular with many people here. By the way, here's the Barnes & Noble's bookstore I was telling you about.
Premiumbeat.com.
I would say this is the most famous Barnes & Noble location in New York City. Now this grand structure, I don't really know too much of the history about, but it definitely looks very impressive. In this part of Union Square Park, the north part, sometimes they'll host a lot of cultural events too. Most recently, I went to the Thai food event here, the Thai cultural event. I did a walkthrough around that area. This is the public restroom. I also had many videos on the Union Square area, including one where I walked through the park and around the perimeter multiple times. You can check those out as Now, Broadway doesn't really have a
PremiumBeat.com.
Union Square proper, mainly because if it were to continue its route, it would have to go right in between this park. But this area saw a lot of development when the subway came to the area. This whole section had to be dug up and built. They used what was called the cut and cover method to construct the subway, where they would just bury the ground. Well, no, not bury, dig up the ground, lay the tracks, and then cover it up with some columns along with some dirt, and that was it. It's a very quick way to construct the subway. Broadway is directly in front of me. This side is 4th Avenue, or historically the Bowery. Bowery is Dutch Reform because back when New York was New Amsterdam and many years after, this area was very, very underdeveloped. It had a lot of farmland and it's not what it looks like today. Now this area of Union Square is very famous for all the chess players. You can go and play games with them for a
PremiumBeat.com.
Don't expect to win though, because they're very, very good at what they do. It's also the site of many political movements and also this grand statue of George Washington on his horse. Read up some information about the George Washington statue here.
PremiumBeat.com.
But he was a very, very important figure in American history. Also the first president of the United States. Here is 14th Street. Most recently it got turned into a busway.
PremiumBeat.com.
Through traffic cannot use this street. They must make a right on the next available right from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sped up the bus services dramatically throughout the area. One of the main reasons the city implemented the busway was because there was the threat of the L train, which runs along 14th Street and going to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. There was a threat of that subway line being shut down. So the city had to draft up alternative transportation options, and one of those was the 14th Street busway. So the shutdown didn't happen. Now there's a mild inconvenience where one of the tubes is closed on nights and weekends, and you have to wait 20 minutes in between trains, but the busway is still here. So now this is the area where Broadway makes its last turn. All the way from 14th Street to 10th Street. And my battery died, I'll change it once I get across the street. Okay, I just crossed the street at 13th Street. And continuing on this walk of Broadway down to South Ferry.
PremiumBeat.com.
Public. Oh wow, we have a real estate office here. I'll let you glance at some of these listings. maybe you want to decide to move to Manhattan. Remember hearing on the Bowery Boys podcast about this area, why Broadway has this curve here from 10th Street to 14th Street, and they were talking about this area being a very wealthy area. Many people had farms here, and they wanted the city to divert the path of Broadway going northward. And they also said that Grace Church, which is in front of me, well, not in front of me, past 11th Street. They thought that might have been a factor as well, but I think they concluded that it wasn't. But it is strange that this curve happened. It is what it is, I guess. Here's 7-Eleven. They're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's a vintage clothing store called the Metropolis. Oh, and how can I forget the Strand bookstore? There was, I think, a block past. They have miles and miles of books. You can go there. It's the largest bookstore in New York City. Wow, take a look at this construction site. Is that a deep hole or what? What are they gonna make here? My gosh. Anyway, here's Grace Church. I think it's an Episcopal church. It's definitely very pretty and very unique. It's also one of the oldest structures in Manhattan.
Premiumbeat.com.
I think this is a Gothic style church. Okay, past 10th Street, I'll be entering the neighborhood of NoHo. NoHo standing for north of Houston Street. Soho stands for, you guessed it, south of Houston Street, which is only a few blocks south from here. We're actually getting very close to the main area, I should say, of New York University. Many people like to joke that New York University, which is the largest university in New York City, doesn't have a campus because there's no like real green space and like wooded areas and grass to walk around. In fact, the real campus is kind of the streets of New York City. And also there's Washington Square Park, which is kind of like its unofficial campus. Even though it is a public park, a lot of NYU students like to use it to study and hang out. Washington Square Park is 2 blocks down and 3 blocks to the right. If you'd like to visit it, I don't go to it in this video. I only talk about it.